But first of all, thank you very much for everyone attending today, wherever you may be in the world. I know we've got a bit of a global audience, so thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us and hear from the guys, Mike and Garrett on the call. So I thought today, just to give you an idea of how we'll go for the next sort of 27 minutes to 30 minutes, we're going to go through sort of what we need to do, I think, to build a better security culture when it comes to training awareness, or at least engaging employees. We have a Q&A and chat option at the bottom of the screen should you like to ask us a question based on what you're hearing, or if there's any questions that you have. And what we'll do with those questions, we'll probably have 5 minutes at the end that we'll go through those questions with the panelists, with Mike and Garrett, and we can cover them off towards the end. Today's agenda will be going through why we feel a positive experience is better to building more of a stronger cybersecurity culture. This webinar is going to be recorded, so at the end of the session we'll have a cut-up version that you can find on our websites. We'll also send those into an email for you, which will have some sound bites, so you can pick and choose the areas that are sort of more interested to you. And yeah, we'll get going with some introductions. So my name's Sam Hook. I'm one of the account directors based in the UK. We have on the call Mike and Garrett, and I'll hand over to them in a moment, and they can introduce themselves and a bit about G2, and then we'll kick off the conversation. So with no further ado, if I hand over to Garrett first, maybe. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Garrett, and let's see. I've been in IT and security for about 7 years now, and I've been here at G2 for about 2.5 years. I was the first tech hire at G2 of any kind. It's hard to do security. But ended up building out both the IT and security functions, and now I lead them. So it's been quite a ride to get here.
Welcome. And Mike.
So I'm Mike Brown. I've got about a little over 10 years experience in IT support before I started at G2, which was just over 2 years ago. Garrett brought me on to build out the service desk function, as he was, like he said, kind of doing everything at the time. So lighten the load a little bit there and get the service desk up and running in a little bit better capacity. And then once that was going, pretty quickly identified the need for another InfoSec analyst, and began the transition to that role with a bunch of training and learning, and then that's where I'm at now.
Great stuff. Yeah, and so from the business side of the introduction, so Hoxhunt, we like to say we're a bit more of a forward-thinking cyber awareness and cybersecurity organization. We feel that training awareness is not necessarily focused too much on the employee, and we tend to receive, or there tends to be a bit of a negative image from the employees to what they think of their organization's security. So we feel that we don't necessarily get the right engagement. We don't feel that employees necessarily value the security, or understand the importance maybe as much as they should. But also, culturally, we feel we can do a little bit more for them. And if they feel like we're providing them with a bit more value, we will get that in return. And if we get that engagement, we've got a much better understanding, or better chance that impacting the risk ultimately. And that's what the purpose of, the training that we hope to achieve. So I guess from a business perspective, G2, would you like to give us a bit of a background of, the business model of G2 and a bit of the history of maybe your security training, of where it's come from and the challenges that you faced?
Sure. So G2, we do two different things. So our original thing that we do is our website. It's B2B SaaS reviews. We like to call it kind of the Yelp of business software. So, if you want to come on and write a review on the software you use, like Hoxhunt, you certainly can. And also, if you want to come research reviews, of how other, folks are feeling about the software, absolutely, that's what we do. And you know, our business model, you know, gives access to the software vendors to, you know, be able to customize their profile, you know, kind of see who's just viewing their profile, the other, you know, products that they're researching, that sort of thing. And as for you know, what challenges that we've had to overcome as like as a security team here at G2, you know, I think that working for a startup brings a lot of challenges, you know, just by its very nature. In an ideal world, like, you know, we would have been brought in sooner to build that solid foundation and integrate into like the company culture from the very beginning. You know, but that's just the way it goes. You know, the company still, you know, the company was growing quickly, still continues to innovate, develop new features, products. We're expanding rapidly, which means that you know, my team, you know, we have to be nimble. We've got to get involved with this, you know, product development, you know, as early in the life cycle as we can, to make sure that you know, things do happen in a secure manner.
Great, great. Would you say that, so from what you just said in terms of the technical side, would you say that there's anything more that you've focused on from a cultural perspective when building your security program?
Yeah, whenever we are whenever we're rolling out a new security initiative, you know, a new tool or any sort of like training, you know, we're always considering the question of like, how can we make this fun? How can we make it engaging, interesting, or really a combination of those three things? That's kind of like our guiding principles for when we roll out something new.
Okay, and then you said, so I think you know, we do hear that it can be quite a, you know, if we are looking to change the way that we do training awareness to maybe engage employees and, like you say, Garrett, make it a bit more interesting, you know, where should we start? You know, where's a good place to start when trying to define the requirements? How do we know what, you know, the requirements need to be to sort of, you know, get the best out of our employees? So I guess my question is, uniquely to G2 being a sort of review business in itself, how do you make your decision on sort of what vendors or, you know, what direction you go in?
Sure. You know, of course, like, you know, as security folks, we're always going to say, you know, we want to work with vendors that make a good product, they take security seriously. But really, I feel like the secret sauce when selecting a vendor, and it's kind of something that's hard to quantify, but it's just so important, is does this product, does it fit within our company culture and the types of tools that we use? Because, you know, we may have the best of intent with buying something, but if folks aren't going to use it, you know, what's the point? Like, you know, you know, G2 is, you know, I would say our demographic, you know, of our employees skews a little bit younger, so they're a little bit more willing to, you know, they typically try, you know, new ideas, new tools, and so that kind of plays into that, how we plays into the factors of when we choose to work with a vendor.
Good.
Additionally, we have kind of our core company values that we kind of use for evaluating a little bit of everything. We use it to evaluate ourselves, that we try to stick to. We call them our peak values, based on like performance, entrepreneurship, authenticity, and kindness. And we kind of extend that out into everything that we do, I feel like, and that includes the, you know, the software purchasing process, and how does the product align with those values that we hold for ourselves.
Great. And we talk about, I know before, you know, we've spoken a few times now, but the idea of having a more of a positive experience when it comes to your security training, how is that aligned to sort of where, you know, where you see G2 and where you see maybe where you've come from, you know, and where the positive experiences go with the employees? How do you think, how does that sort of ingrain into the DNA of G2?
I think in the, you know, in the past, we've kind of taken that traditional, you know, that kind of the classic traditional, like, let's say, methodology of doing security, where it's it can be very punitive. We're punishing the users for messing up, for breaking the rules. And I would say that, let's say we've seen the light, we've seen what's possible if we make the experience for the user like engaging and interesting, and like make them like a participant and not just like a recipient, shall we say. I think that it really like helps with engagement, and it drives that sort of trust in the security team, which I think is very important.
I think when it's a negative experience, the user's main takeaway is just, that this was a negative experience. They don't remember the content specifically or anything around it. They just remember like, oh yeah, I had to do that and I didn't like it. So anything we can do to try to skew things in a more positive light, I think it enhances the retention and the takeaway for what you actually want. So like, this was a great experience and here's why, and I learned this from it, instead of just like, this is something I had to do because I clicked the wrong link in an email.
Yeah. I think ultimately it always comes down to what the employees are saying. If the employees look at training in a positive way, we're always gonna, if we can capture their hearts and minds, essentially, we're always, onto a winner. So I guess my question is, what are your employees saying about the type of security program that you operate?
I would say that we've received some pretty resoundingly positive feedback. With other things that we've done in the past, we've kind of received like mixed feedback. Some folks are used to it, and so they know what to expect. But with kind of the new way of doing things, I would say that it has both raised the trust level of our team. It's kind of raised our profile, and also there's a lot of name recognition with the tools that we use, because sometimes security tools are kind of sit in the background, but the tool like Hoxhunt, like folks actually know, like when we say, hey, use Hoxhunt to report this phishing, like they know what we're talking about. It's not like, wait, what's that? Like, and so because they like the positive aspect of that.
Nice. Yeah. Would you say that with the idea of clicking that reporting button and the feeling or the dopamine hit maybe that they get, do you find that you are receiving more reports than maybe before? And if you are, how do you best deal with those? And is it better for you as the security teams to receive more? And how do you deal with those?
I can't say for sure that we're receiving more reports necessarily, but I can say that we're receiving more information that we can actually do something with. Before people would hit the report button in Gmail or whatever, and it goes off into Google's nebulous cloud, and maybe we never see or hear from it again. Who knows? But with the way we're able to integrate with Hoxhunt, I can give people feedback directly, let them know, oh no, this was a legit email. You can do this. Or they'll get redirected right into the nice Hoxhunt micro trainings if it was one of the simulations. So it gives us a lot more to work with the users and interact with them more than just hitting a button and it goes off and disappears.
Okay. And then so just talking just a little bit about going back to the traditional way of doing training, in terms of maybe the bit more of a punitive approach, a bit more negativity attached to the training. Do you find that there are any, like with your new positive approach, did you find that there are any risks that you're able to better calculate or better measure or better impact, sort of that from moving from the traditional way to the more positive approach?
I haven't, we haven't identified any risks of kind of shifting the way we do things. I only see an upside, pure upside. And I think that when you do things like this, when you roll out programs that have this sort of mindset, it really encourages the users to participate, which we've seen really strong engagement, because frankly, my opinion is there's no bigger disincentive to participation than if that threat of like punishment is like always like looming over your head. No one wants to sit through. No one's like, hey, you failed this training, so now you got to sit through a 5, 10, 20 minute video course, and or even more severely, it's like some companies do, is they're like, okay, well, you failed three trainings in the past year and you're fired. Like some companies do take it that seriously, and I think that's just the wrong mindset to have about these sorts of things.
Yeah, and with the increased engagement, do you find that what that makes your life a lot easier is in the security teams? Does it make it easier then you're not having to chase after the repeat clickers? You're not having to try and force people to take the training that is looming over their heads. Do you find that it's made your lives a lot easier having a bit more engagement or a bit more of a positive experience for the employees?
Oh yeah, absolutely. With the previous, the previous tools that we used that did this sort of thing, it was always a struggle to get folks to actually, participate. If it was cumbersome or if they didn't like doing it, they just weren't going to do it, and it put a lot of burden on us because we wanted folks to learn, but it was pretty evident to us that was just not the right way.
Yeah, there were limited options, for like remediations in that case, like limited things we could shift them into. So if they say, we're a multiple clicker, it's really, they would just end up back in the same place they were the first time they did it wrong. And that's not helping anybody. That's not teaching anyone anything. And it's definitely a positive experience to just have to go back into this bucket where you'll get pinged with an email until you watch this video, answer the obvious questions, and then just rinse and repeat. You're not really taking anything away from that, whereas Hoxhunt is it's not punishing you, and it's just trying to steer you in the right direction.
Right. And then I guess it's always useful to know when, some businesses are not quite maybe as mature as maybe your security program is in terms of where, you're already implementing the positive experience, but businesses seem to be going that way because they understand, we need to give a bit more back to the employee. So is there anything you could share that, in your journey to where you are now, is there anything you've learned along the way that maybe you would have done slightly differently? And I'm not to put you on the spot if you don't know, but is there anything that maybe you could share that you would have done differently to get to where you are quicker, or anything you've come across that maybe you would do slightly differently?
I think the only thing that I wish we would have done differently is that we would have done this sooner. I wish we would have, come to this realization. I wish we would have had that data that allowed us to make this decision. Wish we would have had that sooner. So Hoxhunt was just the very first thing that we did, and now we've rolled out like new initiatives. So, like right now, we're about to roll out a new like security awareness training for our new hires, and it's kind of follows that same thought process. It's fun, it's engaging, it's concise. It's not some long drawn out. We used to like do it live with our new hires. We spent an hour talking to them about a whole range of topics, but now we've condensed it into much more palatable format, so I would say.
Great stuff. Well, no, thank you for answering those questions. I guess just a couple more before we jump onto the questions. There's a few questions in the chat. So just what's the future hold for G2? I guess in terms of where you're looking to go in terms of security.
I would say, when we started, we're a product company, so we were pretty compliance driven. That was really the only way we were able to sort of get the investment, both like from a work perspective and a monetary perspective, is to like really push on that compliance button, because there's like let's say a direct correlation to sales there, but now we're past that point. That helped us build out some of the foundational like aspects of security. We'd have got a little bit more work to do there, but now that we've kind of have that pretty solid foundation, that gives us the ability to sort of fine tune what we're doing, kind of move towards this like positive psychology thing, and kind of really refine what we're doing, because I think that, I think that at G2 we have the ability to try new things, try out these new ideas, and frankly see what sticks.
Yeah, exactly. We have, there's tools in place for the things that we need. And now we're in a position where we can start to try to align things more with the psychology that we're after. Worst case, if it's a failed experiment, we have tools in place and we can go back to whatever we were using before. But it gives us, like Garrett said, the leeway there to try new things and try to align things in a more positive way, instead of just kind of going with the old standard kind of stuff.
Excellent. No, well, thank you very much for answering my questions. Hopefully they didn't come across too selfish. So thank you very much for asking the questions. But we do have a few in the chat, if I may. So first of all, with the working from home situation, what challenges with the initial rollout of Hoxhunt did you have when it came to engaging the employees?
Sure. So we did roll this out while we've been, working from home. We made the switch last year sometime. And was it a challenge at first? Maybe a little bit, but I think that really goes with in any new tool. For us, what we did is just a lot of pre-communication, a lot of follow-up communication, and then one kind of specific thing that we did and still continue to do, and it's a little bit specific to G2. We use G Suite, so as admins, we get reports when folks like report spam emails, and we're like, we'll follow up with them, and be like, hey, this is not like the right mechanism. Like, you should use Hoxhunt. And then one final thing that like Mike and I kind of devised is, with Hoxhunt, you kind of get that like quarterly leader dashboard, folks that like report the most amount of phishing simulations. Well, we've taken that gamification, we've taken it one step further, is that we've added like a monetary incentive with it. So we're like, we're giving out gift cards to like the top 3 folks, every single quarter, and that kind of it further incentivizes people. People love that stuff. So there you go.
Yeah, nice. We hear some good stories about some employees enjoy just the currency of the stars, the fact that they can see themselves progressing, getting better in the training. Some people like to see their names at the top, and also some people do it for the prizes. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can reward employees, but also everyone is different. That we always say that everyone is different. So how can we engage each person in their own way? And that's important that we keep it diverse in terms of, and that's really good to hear that you are one step ahead, or even more forward thinking than we first thought. So excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been it's like I've had some folks reach out to me like organically to say like, oh man, I love this. Like, this is so fun. Like, I'm glad that we've got this, or like otherwise I've reached out, we've reached out to folks that are high up on the leaderboard, and they're like, they say the same thing. They're like, oh, this is great. Like, I didn't know that this could be a thing.
Yeah, whereas like the tools we had in place previously, like I don't think we got a lot of complaints about them, but nobody was excited about them either. It was just a thing that existed and you did. It wasn't nobody was enthusiastic about it, and that's completely different now.
Nice. That's really good to hear. We've got a couple more questions. So Mike, you mentioned that communicating the feedback to the employees on the reported emails has got easier with Hoxhunt. Could you talk us through that in a little bit more detail? How has Hoxhunt helped with that?
Definitely, just with the way that the emails come in the reports now, it's got a full copy of whatever they reported that I can, open in a safe sandbox and, check the headers and look at that and everything, instead of it just floating off to Google and disappearing. I'm at least getting a copy of what was reported without having to go out of my way and request that they forward it to me, and then, further perpetuate it in email or hope they haven't deleted it yet, or any of those situations. It actually gives me context around the reports beyond just simulated ones.
Great. And yeah, so I think we loosely touched on this before, but as there are, so this is another question, as there are so many vendors in this space, you know, how do you find the best one? Like we loosely talked about your decision-making process. Is there anything that you almost have a go-to to start that process off of what you would find to be the best tool for you?
I will say this is a tough one, and I'll say there's no. I wish I could tell you I had like some magic answer that can just magically sift out like who the best vendor is. Of course, I'm going to tell you, hey, go to gt.com, read some reviews, which we do, you know, for ourselves. But what I really tell you also is we do a lot of demos. Like whenever we're evaluating tools, you know, we don't just do like 1 or 2 demos like we usually do. You know, depending on the criticality, the software, and the spend associated with it, we might do 5 or 6 different demos with different vendors. And really, what we're trying to get down to is like cut through the marketing. We're cutting through the marketing and figuring out like you know, how do you actually do this? Like, do you really back up what you say you do? And also, and you know, it's like, is this going to be a real benefit to us?
Yeah, like does the technology do what we need it to do, and then further does it align, you know, with everything else that we're going for here? Is it going to fit in with our suite of tools? Just, you know, we have a certain vibe to the way things are set up, and just making sure that it fits in with it is definitely important.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We've got 1 minute left to at the bottom of the hour. I will just read the following questions, but thank you all for your time if you had to drop off, if you've got a hard stop. But there's one more question I think it's quite important. How has Hoxhunt changed the role of your security team?
I think personally, it's created a more positive view of the entire process, you know, regarding security training and phishing training and all of that. It's a much more, we get a lot more positive feedback. Like I said, we didn't necessarily get complaints about the old tool, but nobody cared about the old tool either. It was just kind of there doing what it did. Now we get people coming forward to say like, hey, this is great. We're engaged. We enjoy interacting with the tool that you guys are using, and it just, you know, elevates infosec just a little bit, makes us a little bit more important, and it gets more eyes on the importance of information security as a whole, I think.
For sure. And to add on to that, you know, I think when you work in security, you hear all the time that like your users are your weakest link. And you know, if you can make what you do, you know, more engaging, more fun, more interesting, that sort of thing, you know, they're more likely to trust us. They're more likely to respect, you know, requirements. And really, I think the way the role has changed, you know, it's kind of a combination of all of that. But you know, users are more willing to reach out, ask questions, report suspected things, because you know, if they're afraid of you or they don't trust you, they're not going to say anything. And our eyes are not everywhere. You know, we can't predict, we can't protect everything. You know, we're doing our best. So
that's fantastic. Right, we have overran by 1 minute. I know this has been a great conversation. I'd just like to say thank you, Garrett and Mike, for joining. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing your expertise as well with everyone on the call. What we will be doing after this is cutting this up and putting it on our website, so you can download it from the website. We will also send out, as I said at the start, just some bite-sized versions, so you can see the sound bites from the webinar today, and you can pick and choose what you would like. But yeah, thank you very much. If there's anything that you need to know a little bit more, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. But yeah, thank you very much. Have a lovely evening or rest of the day wherever you are in the world. And Garrett and Michael, thanks once again for your time. It's been very, very interesting.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you.
Bye.